Thanks everyone for joining us at Ask April and Cindy. This is our Monday night series, which focuses on travel tips and skills that you need to be more successful when you travel. So, hey Cindy.
Hi,
So
April.
tonight we're going to talk about passports, how important checking the date on your passport is, how important it is to keep track of your passport, and maybe some solutions if the worst case scenario happens. So I know
Yeah.
you've had some stories, Cindy, to share about the worst case scenario, I guess, which was maybe losing it, misplacing it, and where to go from there. So
Yeah. At the end, we'll talk about some tips and some things you can do. So, absolutely. I think anytime somebody travels internationally, one of the biggest concerns you have is what are you going to do if you lose your passport? Like, what happens? That is your ticket home, quite literally, and from country to country, especially if you're going from one place to the next. So, having your passport is really important. And we're always afraid it's going to get stolen or lost. So, knowing what to do is what we'll talk about at the end. But I do have a story. There's a story when I was in high school and I was on a foreign exchange program, and we were in France, in a small little village with a group of students. And my little group of students, we happened to be in a little bar together. There was three of us, three girls, and we hung out there for a little while enjoying our time, and then we packed up our little things and went back to the hotel. And when we got back to the hotel, which was just a few blocks away, we realized that our friend had lost her passport. And it wasn't really lost, it was truly stolen, as there
oh
was
my
no
God.
reason she had to have taken it out of her purse. We had been told to carry it with us all the time. She had left her purse unattended for just a moment, turned her back or something like that, and somebody had reached in and taken her whole wallet. So it wasn't just her passport, it was all of her money. And at that time, it was traveler's checks, everything was stolen. So we had a bit of a heart attack. We were teenagers, so it
Right.
was a bigger heart
Yeah.
attack. And we were on a trip with chaperones, so it was even, oh my God, we're gonna have to tell our chaperones that we lost, she lost her passport, and we were in a
And we were
bar, probably
out.
not someplace
Yeah.
we were supposed to be. So there's a whole lot going on there. Um, and then ultimately we ended up getting the passport back, and that's just a lucky story in that we went back to the bar and just insisted that somebody had taken it. It was a small little local place. We were in a very small town, and the story we told them was, we don't care about the money. If they wanted to keep the money, that's fine. But this 16-year-old girl needs her passport back.
Right. Right.
And so magically it showed up. We asked no questions. We did not involve the police. We were just happy to have the passport back. But there is like that, oh my God, panic. What are you going to do? Now, at that time, I'm sure it would have been what we were told, which was weeks. It would have been days or weeks before we would have been able to replace the passport and get back, come back home.
Right. Yeah.
Um, and then I had another similar story, because the panic is the same.
Right.
I was
Oh yeah,
leading a
your
trip
heart pounding.
yeah, leading a trip in Iceland, and we're literally on like the second or third day of the trip, and I get a text message from one of my participants, and she says, "Oh my God, Cindy, I've lost my passport." And it's early in the morning, like 6 o'clock in the morning. So I drop everything and I run over to her room, and I'm asking her, and she's like, "I've looked everywhere. I can't figure out where it was." We started retracing our steps from the day before. We had a rental car. I went down and looked at that. So again, hearts pounding, like, holy, what are we going to do? Right. Like, this
Yeah.
is, because losing your passport is a frightening thing. So after we spent, a few hours in that panic mode, I shifted into, okay, let's just assume it's gone. And what do we do from here?
Right. Right.
So we did the right things, which, we called the embassy. It was a Sunday. The embassy was closed. Um, we started looking for online, like, what do you need to do, and all of those things. So ultimately, again, in this story, it turned out okay because she opted to report it later. She said, "I'll just wait until we come back to Reykjavik," because that's where we were. We were traveling around. She said, "We'll go do our days of travel, and then we'll come back to the major city where the embassy is, and then when it's open, she'll deal with that." And then within our travels, she found it in her
Oh,
suitcase
thank
about
goodness.
2 days later. So there was a relief there. But all of that time, right, you just don't know, like, what am I going to do? And in some countries, you need that passport just to walk around the city, right? That somebody
Yeah.
might stop you. It's your identification. But
Right.
you
Right.
exist and that you're allowed to be there. You'll need it to check into some hotels, right? So
Oh,
if you
yeah.
lose it, it's huge, right?
Yeah.
So I think this is a really good topic on what you can do. And we have Jessie coming up, right, to listen to his
Yeah.
story. You want to tell them about what Jessie's story is a little bit before we go into that?
Sure, sure. So Jesse was asked to do some travel by his employer, as many of us are, and he opened up his passport. It says, you know, you must have 6 months on your passport. He would be making the trip in January. His passport wasn't due to expire till June. So he's like, hey, I got 6 months, you know, no worries. So Jesse is going to share his story of what happens when, you know, it's not a full 6 months essentially, and how you do need to look at the date and not just think, oh, it's, you know, I got time to take care of this. I'm going to take my trip, plan my, you know, tell my boss I'm good to go. So,
Right. Okay, well, we'll let Jessie tell his story.
yep. Thanks for joining us, Jesse. And go ahead and tell us about your travel mishap story.
I'll be glad to, April. Thank you so much for having me on. It is great to talk to both you and Cindy. When you guys reached out about, hey, do you have any interesting travel stories? I had to tell you about my time where, and it all comes down to you should believe it when your company says, do not travel overseas with a passport that is set to expire in less than 6 months. I saw that and went, nah, not really. And so way back in January of 2015, I was set to go to Manila for my company. I was working for a company at the time that had a contact center in the Manila in the Philippines, and they wanted me to go for my second trip. And I looked, and my passport expired in June of 2015. Well, it's January 2015, and that's within 6 months. Close enough, right?
Right.
So I don't know if any of you have gone to Manila, but it is a long trip. There is no direct flights. You take your first trip. Usually, I went to Dubai, and it's multiple hours. It's just this long trip, and you watch tons of movies, and you nap, and they feed you all the time just to keep you from being bored. And so when I finally got to Dubai, I had a 7-hour layover.
Uh,
No problem. I, found a bench. I sat down. I listened to a nap. I listened to a little Bruce Springsteen because that's what
yeah.
I do. And 3 or 4 hours before my flight was scheduled to go to Manila, went, found a shower, showered, freshened up, went, stood in line, and they said, "Oh, your flight's been canceled." Oh no. Okay, no problem. We'll figure this out. They send you to customer service. I go to customer service, and I'm hearing the noise. Hotels have been booked. So there is no place. You're going to have to spend the night in the airport before the next flight. And so there is a wonderful Emirates in their signature red caps, behind the counter says, well, hey, you know what I can do? I can route you to Hong Kong. And from Hong Kong, we can get you a connecting flight to Manila, and you'll only get there 3 hours later than you would have normally. I'm like, wow, what a deal. Do it.
Right.
So I'm like high-fiving. I'm excited. I get on the flight to Hong Kong, and I'm laughing because in fact, I sent you a picture of Welcome to Hong Kong, and I thought of the old Bugs Bunny cartoon. I must have took a wrong turn at Albuquerque, right? Like, how did I get to Hong Kong?
Right.
Got there, everything's going perfect. It's early morning. There's no one in the airport. I go to get my boarding pass, and the agent says, "Where's your other passport?" I'm like, "I don't have another passport." She goes, "This passport's going to expire." I said, "It's January. It doesn't expire till June." No, it has to be longer than 6 months. So I argued, January to June is 6 months. No, Mr. Jackson. You need to go. We can't give you a boarding pass.
Oh my
I'm
God.
like, I'm in Hong Kong. What do you mean
Right.
you can't give me? So April, I'm thinking of the Tom Hanks movie, like where he was stuck in New York airport where he
Yes.
couldn't get out. I'm like, this is going to be my life.
Oh,
So I call my office, and the first thing, the executive assistant, who was a doll, said, "Okay, Jessie, there is a Hong Kong flight going straight to DFW that leaves within 12 hours. If everything worse goes to happen, we're just going to book you on that and have you come home. So you're
perfect.
okay."
Right.
I said,
Yeah.
all right. I got my safety net. So I'm calling my travel agency, and I finally get a hold of someone, and they said, "Oh, I don't know what to tell you to do. Have you tried calling the American Embassy?" Like, no. Why would I call the American Embassy? So you can imagine, April, Cindy, right? I'm finding a payphone. I'm trying to find the number for the American Embassy.
Ah.
I call the American Embassy, and at this time I've been up 20 hours.
Oh.
I haven't had anything to eat or drink in the past 3 or 4 hours because I've been waiting for everything to open.
Right.
There's nothing you can buy in that part of the airport. So I get on the payphone, and I get the American Embassy, and I'm like, how am I going to explain this? And I go, "Hi, my name is Jessie Jackson. I'm in the Hong Kong airport, and I have a situation I don't know how to explain." And the person at the embassy says, "You're trying to travel with a passport less than 6 months." Yes.
Yeah. How did you know? Yeah.
It happens at least once a day.
Ah.
Wow. Okay. She goes, "No problem. What you're going to do is you're going to go get down, get through customs. You're going to get on the ferry. The ferry's going to take you to Hong Kong. Then you're going to take a cab. The cab's going to take you to the embassy. Get here. The embassy will take care of you." I'm like, what?
Whoa.
Write that down again?
Yeah. Exactly.
So I do. I go through customs. I'm trying to explain to them why I'm doing this. I get and I go to kind of at the transportation hub at the airport, and they're very like, "Okay, this is where you need to go. Here's your ticket. When you get there, walk out, flag a cab, tell them you need to go to the American Embassy. They'll take care of you." Okay. So I'm looking, and this train is going over this the water around Hong Kong, and you're seeing all this beautiful architecture, but you can't enjoy it because you're like, "Oh my goodness, what am I going to do?"
Yeah. Your heart's pounding.
Yes. I get to the cab, and the first thing that strikes me is, okay, they're driving on the wrong side of the road because it's Hong Kong, and so I was like, "Oh, okay, that's right. Don't panic."
Yeah.
I get to the American Embassy, and I hand him my American Express card, and he says, "I don't take cards."
Oh.
So I pull out American dollars, and he goes, "Do you not have Hong Kong dollars?" Now, a smarter man would have gone to a money exchange in the airport and gotten local currency, right?
I
No,
guess.
not me.
But
Not me. So I hand him an American 20, and he gives me back $45 of Hong Kong dollars. I don't know if that's a good deal, bad deal. I don't care. I just like, okay. I walk across the street to the American Embassy. I tried to take a picture of the American Embassy, and the security guard was not happy with that.
oh.
Like, what? I'm a spy? I stand in line, and I tell the security guard, "I'm here to talk to someone about a passport." "Well, what time's your appointment?" "I don't have an appointment." "Well, who are you here to see?" "Well, I had just called someone." They pick up the phone, they call
Oh.
the main lady, they call the office, and they look at me and they go, "Okay, you're clear, go." So you go through security. You have to take everything off, all your Fitbit, your watch, your ring, all your stuff. You go through the metal detector. You put everything back on. And I'm sorry, I skipped a step. When I call them, They said, yeah, all you need to do is come up here with a photo. We'll get you a passport. I'm like, I don't have a photo. Oh, no problem. There's a machine in our lobby that will take a photo for you. I'm like,
Oh,
okay, great. Right?
yeah.
So I walk over, $50 Hong Kong.
Oh,
I have $45 Hong Kong. Okay, so I go back to the security guard. He says, oh, no problem. Go upstairs. There is a cashier. They will take your American money and we'll exchange it. All right, so I go through all the security, have to drop through everything, go through this whole thing. I go up, I stand in line. The lady says, we don't do that. I'm like, yeah, you do. There's a big sign that says what the going rate is. Yes, if you were paying a fee or a fine or some
oh,
kind of stuff, but we just don't exchange money.
oh
You don't
no.
understand, ma'am. I'm here. I'm stuck. I just need $50 Hong Kong to go get my photo taken so I can go to work, so I won't be stuck in Hong Kong the rest of my life. I can't help you.
Oh my
So
gosh.
I go back downstairs. I go and I just look. You can just imagine. I'm just depressed. And the security guard says, "Oh, well, there's a coffee shop across the way. Why don't you go over there and see if they'll exchange your money?" Okay, so I walk over there and I go, "Hi, I want to buy something, and I need money." Like, well, we don't take American dollars. And I was like, just please, please. And like, well, we don't the exchange rate. I go, I just need to make sure I have at least $50 Hong Kong. They go, okay, no problem. They give me the money. I have $100 Hong Kong bill. I'm like, okay, I am set.
Right.
I walk over to the American Embassy. I go into the photo booth. Only takes exact change.
Oh,
I may have been cursing at this moment. I
yeah.
am sure you are a family podcast, so we will not repeat the
Right.
language. So I go back to the security guard. He says, well, why don't you go back up to our cashier? So go through security again. I mean, and each time you have to take through everything. Just imagine going through the security line at the airport, right? But this is the embassy.
Yeah.
You walk up the stairs. I wait in line, and I go, "Can you break $100 bill?" "Oh yes, that we can do." I go, "Oh,
Oh,
thank you."
yeah,
So
really.
I have two $50 bills. I walk back down. I go to the machine. I take a photo. I sent you a copy of the photo. I think you guys saw it, and I hope
Yeah.
you share it. I do not look good.
Okay.
I am not a handsome man to begin with, but it is, you can imagine. So I take my photo, go back up security, take through everything, go. At this point, I'm covered in sweat.
Oh,
They give
yeah.
me a form, and I'm worried that all this sweat is going to make the form unreadable,
Right.
because I'm handwriting everything down. I get them the form. I give them, the picture. I give them my old passport, and they go, "Give us 2 to 3 hours, you'll have a new passport."
Oh,
Really? That's it? Yeah. So once again, I go back to my friendly neighborhood coffee shop,
right.
get something to drink. And it is a beautiful weather, so I sit there, try not to go to sleep, people watch, just count the hours down. Sure enough, walk up, going through security, going through all the steps. I get in line. "Oh, here's your passport, Mr. Jackson. Go pay at the window." I go pay at the window. They too take American Express. And so I have a now passport. And they said, it's good for a year. You need to, sometime between now and a year, go get, just if you mail it in, we'll send you in an actual renewed podcast,
Oh, passport.
passport. But for
Gotcha.
now, you're good. I'm like, okay. So, and this is one of my favorite stories, April, Cindy, because as I'm walking out, I'm holding my passport, and the security guys are like high-fiving me.
Oh, yeah.
So someone said, "Jessie, that's what you do. You take adversity and you end up having a cheering squad."
Right,
They're
yeah.
so happy for me that I've gone. I get a cab, I go back to the airport. I take the train, I go back, I get there, and Emirates is like, oh, we found your luggage. We think
Oh,
we can get you on that, right away. And so 24 hours after I was supposed to be in Manila, I got there.
oh my
So
gosh, 24 hours.
yes, it was the scariest and at the same time most exciting story that I've had in a long time. All right,
Oh
you
yeah. You
just
probably
just
slept so well that night after you got to a bed. I can just imagine like
oh, it
all
did.
the adrenaline like goes out of you because
It,
yeah.
and what was funny, of course, is the plane that took me from Hong Kong to Manila was like a 4 or 5 hour flight, and it was booked. So I was at a window seat with the smallest possible, crunched in. But I was just so happy to get there. So yes, when I got to the hotel and checked in, luckily they did not give me a hard time. Like, oh, you're a day late on your reservations.
Right.
We've
Yeah.
canceled your reservations, Mr. Jackson. They immediately like, oh, come in, come in, come in. So,
Oh, good.
so my, I always say that when they tell you don't travel if a passport is not within 6 months, they are not kidding.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and you also kind of like, well, what's the point of having an expiration date then? Like if it's June 2015 and it's January, well, why don't you just say it's really January 2015 when it's expired?
Right,
So
right.
Right.
Because I think a lot of people probably obviously have made this mistake. So,
yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So we
My
now
daughter
can.
almost got caught in Scotland for the same reason.
Oh, yes, I know, and you just wouldn't have thought of that. I never did.
Yeah.
So, but I now can check off that I've been to Hong Kong and the American Embassy on my list of places I've gone.
yeah.
Yeah. Well,
And you've met, go ahead.
I was gonna say you reiterated a couple of things that I have learned and that I know. One is to always bring an extra set of passport photos. That's been something that was told to me a few years ago, and I do carry that with me, as it's the hardest thing to get done if you have to replace your passport. It's the most difficult process. And then last February, when April and I were at the travel show, um, we met with some of the people at the State Department about how to replace your passport. And it was surprising for her to say, yes, we can get you a new passport within a couple hours. So good to hear, Jessie, that in fact
Yeah.
is true. Because it used to be you get stuck there for days, right? It used to
Yes.
be the
Yeah.
fear was if you lost your passport or something like that had occurred, you could be sitting around waiting for several days, if not a week, to replace your passport. So today's technology allows us to do it in a few hours and get back on a flight.
And it is kind of amazing when you think about it. Yes, this was very inconvenient, and yes, it was very tiring, and and I ended up tweeting a picture of. I had to make sure I didn't show the pertinent information, but a picture of my new passport on Twitter, going success.
Yeah.
So some of my friends that were following me on social media were cheering me on, and of course my boss um, made the point of, and it's true, planning ahead instead of just roaming through. Like if I had even stopped for a moment and said, okay, I'm probably going to need Hong Kong dollars, or
Yeah.
ask them, how much am I going to need? What do I need? Gone, could have had that money ready to go. But I think like many of us, just, I want to get going. We'll figure it
Right.
out as we go. And to my credit, I did, but it could have been a lot easier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But all good stuff. Exactly. A really good
Yeah.
story.
Well, that was great. That was a good story from Jessie. All those steps that you have to go, all the hoops, right, of replacing your passport. So, what an adventure.
Yeah. And just like he pointed out some specific things, and I know Cindy and I have talked before of how she carries copies of passport size photos already made right in her wallet. So gosh forbid, she's already taken that step out of the equation. changing your money, because he hadn't even thought to change his money there in the airport, or maybe even I usually tend to, just for emergency, like to switch a little money if I can right at the airport, right at even if it's going to be a high exchange rate, if I've waited till LAX, if I haven't gone to my bank and gotten a little bit of money weeks ahead of time. I know my father, when he travels with me, always insists he goes to his bank, he switches out enough money essentially for us to get by, just in case, and those are some other, so you have it on hand, some currency on your person.
Right. And we had the opportunity to speak to some folks at the State Department when we went to the travel show in February, and I stopped and just kind of chatted about that panic, right? Like, what do you do if you lose your passport? And I have led trips before, so I had a little list of things that I felt was important. So I was just asking to sort of validate, like, am I correct that carrying my passport photos, for example, is a good idea? She confirmed, of course, yes, that's a great idea. You probably won't need them, but in the event, like Jessie, that you have to replace your passport, that's one thing that you don't have to do now. You already have passport photos, and most of the time the embassy isn't going to do that. So you have to go out into the public in this foreign country that you don't know very well and find some place to get a passport photo and pay for it, as Jessie did, right? Like with cash. A challenge. And I mean, even in the States, like when I have to get a passport photo, it's like, oh, where do I go? And you have to find a place to do it and make an appointment sometimes. So you can avoid all of that. And the other thing that I have been told was to carry a photocopy of your passport. And she said that's not necessarily as important, but she said it certainly doesn't hurt, especially in those countries where your passport is your ID as you're walking around. So if you've lost it, they may not take it or be happy with that, but at least you can prove that you are a U.S. citizen and that you have had a passport before.
Right.
So that will help. And then in Iceland, when we were having that issue, we learned that you also need to have access to things like your birth certificate, because they're going to look for some of those things. And so one of the tips that I had read and I practiced is I put those documents on a Google Drive somewhere. I rename them to something else, so it's not like Cindy's ID.
Right, yeah.
But they're just photos of some of these items, so that in the event that I am somewhere else and I've lost all my identification, I can access online through the internet pictures of my passport and pictures of my birth certificate and some of this other documentation, so that I can prove what I need to prove when I'm there. It's interesting that, they helped Jessie get through that process, that the airline, right?
Gave exactly.
Them, I'm sure it happens all the time, right?
Right.
People, the guy with the 6 months thing. I know my daughter had the same problem. I don't know which country she was traveling between, but her and her father were on a trip and they were going from one country to another, and they almost didn't want to let her in because she had a similar problem. But because she was underage and she was traveling with her dad, they just sort of like let her go, kind of thing. But I think had she been doing that by herself, that they would have enforced that. And in some cases, they don't have an option. Like with Jessie, they felt that they don't have an option. They had to enforce that 6-month rule. So he's off.
Exactly. Right.
I think the embassy is another thing. I always do that as well. I always look up what embassies are in that country and what are going to be closest to me. Some countries only have one, but most larger countries, especially those that we have a healthy relationship with, will have multiple embassies. So knowing what the closest one is to you and having that phone number and address available to you. Again, that's just something else you won't have to look up.
Right.
If you have that.
Right. And I think having that information, having some of these things, if you take those precautions, you feel a little bit more prepared, so that if should something happen, hopefully you're not immediately thrown into panic mode and not know what to do. You've kind of in your mind walked through, like, oh, I need these pictures, here's the embassy, here's a phone number, something, and where to go.
Right. And I carry that embassy information for reasons beyond the passport. It's also because if you have any encounter with law enforcement or anything like that in another country, you need to notify your embassy. It's real that they are there to help you through those processes. So traffic tickets, or you've done something you shouldn't do, the embassy, if you get stuck or get in a bind, they're there to help. And if you don't have that number, you're going to be looking it up or not know who to call for your help.
Right.
So it's not just for the passport piece, but the passport, that's the first person you're going to have to call is to the local embassy and find out when they're open and how to follow that process. So
Right, exactly.
I think that's probably all we have. We'll put some notes in the description here about where to look and some places to, sign up. And one thing we haven't mentioned is the STEP program.
Yeah, the STEP program is really important, and they were at the travel show as well, and it's always good to register with STEP, especially when you're traveling in these new times. I know I've been getting updates regularly from even pre-travel. As soon as I knew I was going to go to a particular place, I put it in, and then I'm getting updates if they're having construction or a gathering, even demonstration, or a planned outage. Then you're getting that information right away.
Right. So we'll put those notes and comments about what to do, and maybe a little list of things to prepare in case you lose your passport. So I'm so glad we got Jessie's story, because that makes next episode wonderful. So, all right. Well, thanks, April.
Thanks, Cindy.